Hello everyone, welcome back to Think Outside the Board and the Crowdfunding Roundup. In this week's video, we'll be looking at the 8 hand-selected campaigns that I think are your best bet to help crowdfund that launched between May the 10th and May the 16th. Now I'm running a little bit late this period, which means when this video posts, there'll be another video posting within 3 or 4 days. I'm going to be updating the crowdfunding roundup section of the YouTube channel to reflect that Friday is now the day I expect these videos to be publishing. I may get them up earlier on Thursdays some of the time, but I figure if I shoot for Friday and name that day as Friday, that'll be a pretty easy date for me to hit most weeks. And the videos that launch those weeks will be covering the crowdfunding campaigns from the previous Wednesday through the Tuesday of that week. I'm working behind the scenes to launch new types of content within the next few months. And once I do that, once I get to that point, I'll be talking about that more. But for the foreseeable future, for the next few months, just expect these videos to continue once a week, launching usually on Fridays. One exception on the near horizon, I'll be going out of town for a 1-year anniversary trip with my wife Kristen to Portland. We'll be gone between May 30th and June 5th, so there'll be some time that I'm out of town and I'll be unable to produce the weekly video. And I think rather than trying to combine that into, one big video, I'll just do the video that I sort of missed as soon as I get back in town and then do the next video shortly thereafter. So around, June 6th, 7th, 8th, you'll get 2 videos kind of on each other's heels. The first will be covering the previous week's games, and then the second will be covering the games that have just launched. And I really appreciate it when people are able to like and subscribe and watch the videos all the way through. Now, you can't do that every week. Sometimes you're pressed for time or you're looking for specific content. And if that's the case, then you can always scroll over the play bar. You'll see the titles come up for the various campaigns. And if there's something that you're specifically looking for, you can just go right to that content. Also, I always have links to all of the campaigns that I'm talking about. So if there's something that you're specifically interested in, you can go down into the description of the video, click on the link next to that campaign, and it will take you right to that campaign. This week, I'm looking at 5 different campaigns on Kickstarter, 3 campaigns on Gamefound. So without any further ado, let's get right to those campaigns and take a look. First up on the list is Uncharted Stars, which came out on May 12th. That's the day that it launched. The other games in the video this week all launched on Tuesday, May 6th. So this is the one game that came out a few days prior to the big Tuesday launch day. Now, this one is a roll and write game. Generally, the prices for these are much, much lower. Oftentimes they're, print and play files and things like that, so that they don't actually need to send you physical stuff. This one had a funding goal of $3,800. They're currently at $6,100, so this is funded. And the campaign is going to end on June the 11th. Now, it says right up here that the game is designed by Scott Almes and Tristan Rawson. Scott Almes is best known for the Tiny Epic games, and Tristan Rawson is an artist whose style I really, really like, and he's very hardworking. He's been working behind the scenes on a lot of different games. His art, in my opinion, is always a good thing when it's in a game, but he hasn't hit maybe the level of being known by people that he deserves. And I think maybe in the next couple of years, you'll really see him blow up because he's been working on so many games and just doing quality, good work on game after game after game. Okay, so let's take a look at this campaign and what's being offered. Let's start with the video, though. And remember, this is a roll and write game.
Introducing Uncharted Stars, a roll and write game by Scott Almes, illustrated by Tristan Rawson. Chart a course to explore the galaxy. Recruit your crew and leverage their powerful abilities. Beam up your red shirts to aid your exploration. Build robots to aid your crew's flexibility. intersections and gain big bonuses. Upgrade your ship and explore deeper into space. Print full-color play sheets or a low-ink version. Or create your own ship improvement. Uncharted Stars. Back us today on Kickstarter.
All right, that gives you a quick look at that. All right, let's take a look at the pledge prices on this. And we can see that this Kickstarter is actually being run by Tristan Rawson, who's run one other campaign. Let me see if it's the one that I'm thinking of. The Mariana Trench. It's actually not. There's another game that he did the art on recently that was, I believe, largely done as a print and play that looked really cool, really impressive. So that said, let's just take a quick look over here on Board Game Geek. Okay, so Scott Alms, I mentioned he's the designer of the Tiny Epic games. But let's take a quick look and see what else he's done. So yeah, Tiny Epic Galaxies. He's also designed Warp's Edge. Here's of Land, Air, and Sea. Here are some more Tiny Epic games. We've got Quest, Dungeons, Dinosaurs, Zombies. He did Claim, Food Chain Island. That's a Button Shy game that he did. Tiny Epic Kingdoms. Beer and Bread is pretty new. Harbor. What else am I looking for? I feel like I'm looking for a couple of his games and I'm not seeing. Tiny Epic Mechs, Defenders, Cosmic Colonies. He's designed a lot of kind of medium light type games. Unsurmountable, that's another Button Shy card game that he did. Oh, right, the Almanac games, the Dragon Road, and what was the other one called? Oh, and So You've Been Eaten, and Loveless and Babbage. What was the other one that he did? There it is, the Crystal Peaks. So he's done a lot of games, especially in that kind of medium light complexity range. And the people who like his games seem to really like his design style. Now, the artist on this is Tristan Rawson, and he has... Let's see what he's been working on lately. Let's go by year released for him. Okay, A Wayfarer's Tale. That was the one that I mentioned that he did the art on recently. I believe it ran on Kickstarter, could have been Gamefound, and I think everything involved with that was kind of a print and play, but it looked really, really cool. Here. And some of it you kind of built, you would print out and then assemble these things. So I think they originally thought they might do it as like a physical game, and they shifted to doing just print and play. But this was just a really cool looking Kickstarter with some great art and a really interesting solution for how he designed these backdrops to be constructible from print and play elements. So he did that one, Wayfarer's Tale. What else has he got on here? Let's just look at his highest rated stuff. So Tranquility, Cosmic Colonies, Kingswood, Vinyl, Relics of Rajavihara, Airloft, Rune, Longboard, Pebble Rock Delivery Service, another Tranquility game, Die in the Dungeon, Mariana Trench. That was the one he actually ran on Kickstarter. 3 Laws of Robotics. So I mean, he's worked on quite a few things over the last several years, and just a really good artist who I don't think has achieved the level of success that he probably deserves, and hopefully that is coming to him. So that's Uncharted Stars, and I think with both of these guys, it's a pretty safe bet. Not too much risk, I wouldn't think, associated with this one. And let's see if they're even... No, it's all print and play, right? So there's very, very little risk involved in that. You don't have to wait for anything to be produced. There's no, production end or delivery end. You're literally just getting a digital copy of this game. And in the US, it's going to cost you $7. So the risk for something like this is really, really minimal. Hopefully you can take a look at the campaign. The video may help you a little bit and see if it's right for you, but certainly it's $7. It's not a huge investment. And if you end up not liking it, it's not a huge loss. But there's not much to worry about in terms of this not delivering or something like that. And I think if you like roll and writes, this is something you probably should check out. I know for me personally, some of my favorite roll and writes include the Cartographers series and the Welcome To series. And I like roll and writes. I think they're a lot of fun. Sort of pure fun factor. Sometimes there's luck involved. Obviously, you're rolling dice. Sometimes you're flipping cards. But for players who don't want any luck involved, the roll and writes may not be the game for them. But for a lot of other gamers, I think it's just roll and writes are such fun, and they're something that you can easily put into a game day and just kind of squeeze them in among other things. Maybe when a big game's getting brought out to the table or put away, some of the other players can play a quick roll and write. But yeah, so minimal risk involved with this one, and you've got a couple of pretty good creators involved. Okay, the rest of the 7 games that we're going to be looking at today were all Tuesday launches, and we're going to start with this one, Aeon Trespass, Odyssey, second printing plus all new content. This is a behemoth of a game and of a Kickstarter, and there's actually been some, I guess, drama that has been on the internet in the last couple days regarding this campaign and Quackalope. I probably don't really need to go into that too much, but I can say that I did back the original Aeon Trespass. It's kind of like a boss battler in the vein of Kingdom Death Monster, but combined with a huge exploration and storytelling game like something like Etherfields or Tainted Grail. But then it also has, campaign and some kind of legacy and elements in it. Now, it is a huge, big game. They first kickstarted it, and the game kind of grew in development. I believe it was designed as it may have even originally been designed as a 1-cycle game, and then it became a 3-cycle game, and then it became a 5-cycle game. As they kind of continued working on the game, it became bigger and more expansive. So they're doing this Kickstarter now as kind of 2 things in one. If you missed Aeon Trespass Odyssey before, or missed some part of it, you can come onto it here and get what you're missing. But they've also created a new standalone sequel, which uses a lot of the same mechanics, but it's somewhat streamlined. And so they have some pledges in this campaign to back that new campaign, which is going to have, I believe, like 12 different cycles. It's going to take place in 4 different seasons, and each season is going to have kind of 3 adventures. So 3 times 4, 12 adventures total. I think those adventures will be smaller than the cycles in Aeon Trespass Odyssey, but there's 12 of them instead of 5. So overall content, I'm not sure how that's going to compare. If you know this publisher, Into the Unknown, they're fairly new. Aeon Trespass was their first thing. It has delivered already, so they did deliver the game. It's not one of these games that's hasn't delivered, but in the in-between Aeon Trespass and this kind of new reprinting with the new content, they also did launch a Kickstarter campaign for a game called Kingdoms Forlorn, and so that is in development right now. That's being produced, and that's another kind of huge game like this with a lot of miniatures and exploration and big campaign game. So this had a minimum required funding goal of $54,000. They're at $2.5 million. Obviously, it's very well funded. But again, this game is a massive undertaking and maybe one of the most expensive games out there. We're talking on the level of like Madara, the Havens, and some of the other big dungeon crawlers like Oathsworn, stuff like that. Maybe Chronicles of Drunagor. It's huge. And they kept, as they were, kind of adding on cycles and stuff, they kept adding in other things like quality of play upgrades, like wooden tiles. And this is a big game with a lot of price behind it and a lot of ways to make it even prettier. Now, I'm going to play the video for you. This is a long video, but I think in light of everything that's been going on with this and Quackalope, It's worthwhile, I think, watching this 7-minute video where the designer and I believe one of the developers talks about the game, and it'll give you a look at the game here some more before we go and look at pledge prices. But if you're not wanting to watch this whole video, you can just pass by this, and then we'll be talking about the campaign in 7.5 minutes after this video ends.
For eons immemorial, the Olympian gods lorded over the fates of all men. It was a golden age of beauty, justice, and good. But the gods grew conceited and full of hubris. One fateful night, their reach finally exceeded their grasp. They let something alien slip into our world, something they could not contain or fight. All they could do was die. The world would follow suit. It's been 10 years since the Eschaton event. Primordials now reign supreme, unchecked by gods, unmatched by heroes. Their mere presence enough to erase all life. No hope is left for Greece. But this is not a tale of cataclysm, nor of man's fall. This is a tale of taking back what is rightfully ours. A giant iron ship cuts through turbulent seas, besieged from all sides by enemies who would see its mission fail, and the hope of mortals extinguished. For it carries the only thing that can oppose the primordials, the only thing they fear, Titans. You must prevail. You must rise to the challenge, and against all odds win. Arise, Argonauts, arise and save all!
Hi guys, this is Matt Nowitzki, the CEO and Creative Director of Into the Unknown Studio. 4 years ago, we came to you, to Kickstarter, with our dream. This massive, deep, engrossing board game of giant monster battles in a science fantasy, post-apocalyptic ancient Greece. And thanks to you, thanks to your support, we were able to realize this dream. Aeon Trespass Odyssey would not have been made in any other way. But it did get made, and it launched to universal acclaim, to award nominations, to glowing reviews from fans and critics alike. It garnered a 9.3 average rating on Board Game Geek, the highest a single master-rated game earned up to this time. And maybe most important of all, it spawned a passionate, lively community. The only problem? Aeon Trespass Odyssey sold out almost immediately. That's why we're back. We're back on Kickstarter with a second printing of the Aeon Trespass Odyssey core game and a slew of new content, including a standalone sequel, 12 Sins of Heracles. There has been never a better time to enter the unique world of Aeon Trespass than now. If you are a new backer, please continue watching. If you are a returning backer, you can safely skip to this timestamp. So what is Aeon Trespass? Imagine ancient Greece devastated by a terrible cataclysm. The gods are dead, civilization is gone, the world is overrun with giant monsters called primordials. You play the Argonauts, a select group of people who can harness the power to control mighty titans and lead them to battle. You are the last best hope of humanity.
Aeon Trespass Odyssey is unlike anything you have played. It's the biggest campaign narrative board game out there, with a compelling, mature story full of heart-wrenching choices and devastating consequences. It's a game about adventure, exploration, civilization building, and boss battling, where the mechanics constantly change and evolve, keeping things interesting and fresh throughout. It's deep, rewarding, and tactical game. It's like a video game or a tabletop RPG wrapped in a legacy board game package.
And this is just the beginning. We've got so much more to share with you. So many more surprises for both returning and new backers. It's going to be an awesome 3 weeks. And to start it off, let's watch this brand new story trailer.
The world was murdered. And the blame lies with Heracles. His wrath, rage, recklessness has left the lands wasted, nations sundered, laws broken, and 12 monsters unleashed. The death toll was unimaginable, the sins unforgivable. and hereditary. Having come of age, Heracles' children set out to find their would-be father. They will follow the bloody path he carved from the sun-baked savannas of Nemea to the shattered spine of the Erymanthian Mountains to the blood-stained sands of the distant shores of Anatolia. To the ends of the earth, if they have to. They will get answers. They will have justice. Or if neither is available, they will settle for revenge. We've been building the Aeon Trespass world for the better part of the last decade. The journey of the Argonauts and the Iron Ship is but one of many stories demanding to be told. The tale of the Heracleides, the children of Heracles, who are on the hunt for their father, trying to undo his sins, is another. And this new story is worthy of a brand new experience. New characters, new titans, new primordials that you will battle over land, sea, air, and beyond. New gear, so much new gear.
Aeon Trespass 12 Sins of Heracles is a standalone sequel to Odyssey, one whose content can be mixed and matched with Aeto for ultimate modularity. However, 12 Sins of Heracles is not merely an extension of Aeto. It builds on its premise while introducing new mechanics and completely new concepts. New open-world campaigns with new regions to explore in a non-linear fashion. A new journey system with new travel mechanics. A new character progression system. New crafting system. New economy model. Allies, annals, eidolons, new everything.
And this is just the summer starter box. The story of 12 Sins of Heracles will be told across 4 seasons, all of which will be revealed during this campaign. Also, alongside stretch goals, we'll be revealing new, daily, exciting, and most importantly, free content that will go into each of those boxes. Monsters, mobs, miniatures, you name it. Before we are done with them, these boxes will be bursting with content. And beyond that, there are still more surprises, both for 12 Sins of Heracles and Odyssey, like the cross-game Fate Singer Titan expansion. These next few weeks are gonna be super exciting, and I wholeheartedly invite you to go on this journey with us. It's going to be wild.
Okay, so there's a lot of content in there because they, had the story trailers for 2 different games. And there's a lot of talk from the designer, and I believe the other guy is one of the developers on this. So I think you're fairly safe with this as far as things go. There's no kind of negative stuff with Into the Unknown, the publisher here, like there has been for Mythic Games and kind of what they've been doing recently. However, just know that this is a huge game. There are tons of miniatures. There's a lot of components and things like that. So there is always the option for a game that is this big and a publisher that's this new for things to happen. But so far, they seem to be doing well from what I know. And I have received my copy of the game, the original game. So here is a look at their past campaigns. They started out things here with this Aeon Trespass Nymphs campaign, which is really just a miniatures campaign. And then they did this other one, Ascaton. So they were getting their feet wet just doing miniatures campaigns. This Monster Slayers of Slawia card game was not successful. And then they came back here. They did Aeon Trespass Odyssey. This was their first campaign for Aeon Trespass. And then I believe what happened is they added on a couple additional cycles, and then later in the Pledge Manager, because this went on for a while, it was such a big sprawling game to produce, you were able to add on those other cycles. Then they did this game, Kingdoms Forlorn, which is another kind of huge game like this, and now they're back with this reprint plus this sort of sequel to Aeon Trespass Odyssey. So let's take a look at the individual pledges for this, but they're going to get expensive. This is I'm not too worried about this publisher in terms of risk, even though they are fairly new. But this is an expensive game, and it's going to have expensive pledge prices. Now, as you can see, I did pledge for one of these early pledges for the new game, and this was kind of an early cheap price. I mean, cheap price, but it's still like almost $500 for all 4 cycles of this new sequel game. And they do have pledges that are still available for this, but because this was an early bird price, the pledges are getting more expensive for that. But let's take a look at the early, the kind of smaller pledges to begin with. So we've got this Heracles pledge for $128, and this is for just the summer season of the 12 Sins of Heracles, and it's going to have 3 campaigns. So it's sort of 25% of this new Heracles game, and they're going to be packaging it in seasons, so it'll be a little easier to sell and kind of easier to compartmentalize. So this is essentially a pledge for 25% of the new game for the summer campaign. Now, if we go over here for $294, this is the reprinting of Aeon Trespass. So this is going to come with cycles 1, 2, and 3, which were the original 3 cycles of the game. As we move down further, we've got this Mortal Pledge for $637, and this is going to combine those 2 things. So you've got the 3 cycles of Aeon Trespass, you've got the summer part of the 12 Sins of Heracles, and then they have also included in this pledge cycles 4 and 5 of Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Now, as we go into further pledges, we can see, these were the early Fates pledges that included all 4 campaign collections for the 12 Sins of Heracles, and they started out at $484. They did a bunch of these. They're all gone, all of these. But I believe by the end of the campaign, they'll be launching more pledges that include more of this content, because they're going to be bringing out the various cycles, the 4, summer, autumn, winter, and spring, as this campaign goes on. And it's going to end on June 7th, so it's still got, a couple weeks left to go. So they're going to be revealing a lot more content as they go on. By the time this is done, the pledges are going to be enormous. They're going to be really expensive if they have these all-ins that aren't discounted. But just to give you an idea of what you can get through this, and if there's so much content here, like if I'm starting to scroll up, right, to kind of show you some of this, and you can see this bar over here, it's barely moving because they just have so much stuff listed here. Let's see. Let me continue to kind of go up quickly, and you can just see how long it takes me to scroll through all of this content. So and here's the shipping, which is probably the most important thing. So in the USA, if you're pledging, just this pledge level that includes the first of 4 cycles in the new standalone game, Heracles, it's $128. In the USA, continental USA, it's going to have a $39 shipping fee, so it's going to end up being $167. Odysseus is the one that includes the first 3 cycles for Aeon Trespass Odyssey, and if you're doing that in the continental US, you're looking at $48 on top of $294, so essentially $342 kind of all told, including shipping. If you're to do this Mortal Pledge, which includes all 5 cycles of Aeon Trespass plus the new summer cycle of the 12 Seasons of Heracles, which right now this is the biggest pledge you can go for. So it's $637, but you're getting an enormous, massive game and 25% of a new game in that. With the $87 shipping, you're looking at $724. So, these are not cheap pledges. And even if we say, hey, we think Into the Unknown is okay, they've delivered the original game, everything went pretty well with that, it's well loved, it's well rated, it's still an enormous amount of money. So, I personally am not too worried about this, not getting made or anything like that. But the thing that I would communicate here is that if you can't afford losing the money, you just shouldn't pledge. So, there's always going to be risk involved. And, this is an enormous game. It has so much production stuff, the minis, all of the game components. There are a lot of ways for this to, balloon in terms of production costs and delivery costs. So you should always be aware of that. And just the fact that this is a huge, massive game, with just so much kind of production behind it, there are always going to be risks. And this is a newer publisher, although they have done well on their first, kind of big thing out of the gate, the original campaign for Aeon, Trespass, Odyssey. But the fact that they had to make this thing into 5 different cycles, and now the new game is going to have 4 different cycles, each with 3 campaigns inside it, it just gives you an idea of how enormous this campaign is. But it is one of the biggest, most ambitious campaigns in all of board gaming right now. I'd say right up there with, Gloomhaven and Frosthaven and Madara, Oathsworn, Chronicles of Drunagor, Kingdom Death Monster. It is a huge, massive campaign and something that, if you're looking for these kinds of games, if you're really into these kinds of games, this is a game that you should at least be looking at, because it is on, the cusp of just offering the most for this kind of experience that's out there in any game. Anyway, that is Aeon, Trespass, Odyssey. If you have the money to back it and you love huge campaign games, I definitely would recommend taking a close look at this one. From there, we're going to go to Button Shy Reprint Campaign, and this is headed in the exact opposite direction. Button Shy makes these wallet card games. They're generally 18 cards a piece. When you back this, usually it's $5 shipping, no matter how many wallet games you're getting. And the games tend to run, maybe $10 each. Let's take a look down at this. We can see, however, though, that the funding goal on this is $2,000. They're at $40,000, so they're very well funded. And the campaign here for this one is going to end on May 27th. So this is one of the earliest campaigns that will end of all of these campaigns. Now, if we look at the pledges, they've got prices here for 1 game, 2 game, 3, 4, and 5 games. And I believe, let's take a quick look. I believe the shipping, do they say, in the continental US, $5 for any number of games. So the more games that you back, the more you'll be saving on shipping. So 1 game would put you at $16, 2 games would put you at $26, 3 games would put you at $36, 4 games at $46, and 5 games at $56. And you can always get more games at their website. They have a huge collection of games, and they advertise that down here at the website add-ons. Now, if we want to look and see what games are actually available in this campaign, because they're using this campaign to reprint a lot of their older games, they're probably best known for Tussie Mussy, Sprawlopolis, and Circle the Wagons, the 3 games that they have right here in the front of their screenshot. Those are their 3 most famous games, but they have dozens, maybe even hundreds of games that they've put out. And so they use these campaigns as a way to reprint some of their games that have fallen out of print. Because when you get down to it, this is a small operation kind of out of a Brooklyn apartment run by Jason Tagmeyer, the publisher. And he works with a lot of designers and artists on these games, but this is a very small company. It's very homegrown, hand-spun, and so, if they want to keep these things in print, they need to know what the people want. So they run these campaigns to kind of find out what they should be reprinting. So they do have add-ons for some of their, most famous, most highly rated games, including Skulls of Sedlec, which is also a pretty well-regarded one. But then if we go down here, these are the games that they're reprinting. Now, Circle the Wagons is one of their most famous, so that's probably an easy one for them to do. But in this campaign, they're also going to be reprinting some Circle the Wagons expansions, and then stuff for the game Liberation, Pentaquark, Forest Sky, and Count of the Nine Estates. And as this campaign goes on, I believe they are asking for backer feedback to see what games they should be adding to this and what games they should be reprinting. So, as I said, these are all 18 wallet card games. They vary. Some of them are solo only games. Some of them are 2-player games. Some of them are multiplayer games. And you've got videos by outlets like Shut Up and Sit Down. There's a lot of other board game content creators who have done videos on Button Shy just because they produce so many games. People will eventually just say, hey, let me make some videos that look at a lot of games in their collection. So if you want to look more at their games, you could check out this video, or you could just kind of search around the internet. But there's not too much risk involved with this one because the cost is low, the shipping is low. I myself own Sprawlopolis and Tussie Mussy, and they just make pretty good games that are very affordable, very small, so you can take them with you places. They're very portable, and they're just good little things for you to have literally in a wallet. You can slip into a pocket and then just have for yourself as a game option when you're traveling or when you're just going about your day-to-day stuff. It's easy to take these games with you. So this campaign is on Gamefound, and you can come into here, probably respond, and influence what other games get added to this campaign. And if there are games that you want that aren't in this campaign and they're currently in print, you can also order them through the Button Shy website. Okay, moving on from there, we've got this publisher, Dan Versen Games, who is putting out 3 games by David Thompson. Now, David Thompson is probably best known to mainstream audiences for designing the games War Chest, which is also a war game, but that is more abstract strategy. And I think it has mass appeal because you are using different kind of circular units. They're chips that almost look like the chips you'd find in like Chip Theory games. And you get different units, and then you're playing against other players, and it's great. He's also the guy who's behind the Undaunted series, which I think are some of the most accessible war games out there. Generally, they're for 2 players, head-to-head. There's some solo options involved. Now there's North Africa, Normandy, Stalingrad, which is this massive campaign, and I think there's a new one coming out. But those 2 series are, I think, how most mainstream gamers know David Thompson as a designer. However, he's also done a lot of just pure war games, and he has some job in the military that he can't fully disclose. But I think David Thompson's work history, whatever it is, has put him in a position where he has a lot more first person, front and center experience with war than a lot of board game designers. And so you'll find, like in the Uncharted series, there's a lot of mechanical things in that game that are really cool, things that could have been complex, but he's streamlined it so well that he's able to take these elements, import them into a board game, and just make them really accessible and easy to play. And the Undaunted series has had really huge success, and I think that's a huge testament to David Thompson. So Dan Versen Games, which is a publisher who's done stuff like the Thunderbolt Apache Leader War game and the Warfighter, the Special Forces Tactical Card game. He has a whole series of these games which are war games, but they're card games. So that's kind of Dan Versen Games' most popular stuff. But he's published some of David Thompson's war games in the past, and this campaign here is for a reprinting of some of these. So 2 of them, I believe, are solitaire-only games, and the third one, I think, is a kind of a head-to-head war game that can also be played solo. So most wargamers probably know these games. Let's look at David Thompson as a designer. Okay, so yeah, you can see here he did the War Chest game, the Undaunted series. These are his best rated games, I think, because they have so much appeal to mainstream audiences. But he also did Pavlov's House. He did Sniper Elite, the board game. This game Resist, which I've heard really good things about. And some of his other games include Castle Itter, which is one of the games in this campaign, and Europe Divided. So Pavlov's House, I believe, is the game. You can play 1 to 3 players. So it's kind of a 2-player head-to-head game, but it can be played solo. And it says here, in Pavlov's House, you take control of the valiant defenders of a Soviet strongpoint in Stalingrad as they hold out against German attacks for almost 2 months. And if we take a look here over in this campaign, they talk a little bit about the 3 different games. So Pavlov's House was a fortified apartment building used as a strong point by the Soviet 62nd Army during the pivotal Battle of Stalingrad in World War II. So you take control of the valiant defenders of the strong point. You also control the key leaders throughout the Soviet 62nd Army that made the defense of Pavlov's House possible. So, and it does have a solitary version of the game, where you play those defenders, but the 2-player version, someone is the defenders and the other player is the 62nd Army. So that is Pavlov's House. Castle Itter is also a really well-regarded game by wargamers. Takes place near the Austrian village of Itter, 1945. And this is a solo game here. And then he's got Lanzareth Ridge, which is another solo game. So these are 3 war games by perhaps the best war game designer currently making war games in a really unique position, I think, because of his work history. And you can pledge either of these games, any of these 3, for $60, or the all-in, all 3 games, $160. So that's basically giving you a $20 discount, because if you bought all 3 of them at the $60 price, it would be $180. Now, let's see. In the continental U.S., we estimate the shipping cost of a single game to be roughly $25 US. And they say that each additional game will probably add roughly $5. So that means if you're pledging a single game here, you're looking at about $85 with shipping. And if you're doing this all in, you're looking at about $195 with shipping. And finally, they're planning on delivering this campaign in August 2023, which reminds me that I didn't actually talk about the delivery dates for the other campaigns that we've mentioned. So let me go back and quickly do that. The first game that we were talking about was Uncharted Stars. Now this is a print and play essentially, so it's going to be delivering fairly quickly, June 2023, after this campaign ends. The Aeon Trespass campaign, remember this is a massive undertaking with a lot of miniatures, just a hugely ambitious thing. So we're looking at the delivery date for this. They're talking about May 2025. So this is a long way off. Again, this is a huge campaign, big expensive pledges, so not really a surprise. And finally, that Button Shy campaign. Again, these are cheaper games to produce. These are reprints, so they may not currently be printed, but they've existed before, so they just need to get them reprinted, which means this one will be delivering in October 2023, so not too far out. And that brings us back to David Thompson games with this delivery of August 2023. Now, before we finish with the David Thompson games, we should backtrack a little bit to look at where they are in their funding goal. So they have a funding goal of $15,000. They're currently at $14,000 and change, which means they're not funded yet. But considering that this campaign is going to complete its funding here on June 6th, that's when the campaign ends, there's no doubt in my mind that they will cross this funding goal. And I think if you're looking for some war games by a really good war game designer, this is something you definitely should be taking a look at. Now, from there, we're going to go to the back half of this video, the remaining 4 games. The first of these is Dead Cells, the roguelite board game. And for anyone out there who's a board gamer, they're probably familiar with Dead Cells. This is a pretty popular video game franchise over the last few years. that is roguelite, and they're now making a board game version of this. Now, I don't know about you, but I get a little bit wary when I see board game versions of video games, because so often they're just not that well done. You know, they're being sold on the name of the IP, and sometimes the design behind it or the publishers behind it aren't really the best, or aren't invested in it, or haven't really done enough design work, but they're kind of selling their product off of the IP itself. So knowing that, well, let's look at two things. First of all, their funding goal is $37,000. They're $500,000 over that, almost $600,000. So this is a super healthy campaign. It's obviously going to fund, and it's going to complete on June 1st. But let's take a look at the publisher. Now, the publisher here is called Scorpion Mask, and this is their first Kickstarter. So normally I would, that would raise some red flags for me. And it still does, because they haven't really run a crowdfunding campaign. However, let's take a look at Scorpion Mask over on Board Game Geek, because I think this will give some people, make them feel a little bit better about this. Because although the publisher hasn't done a lot of crowdfunding stuff, they have produced some pretty good successful games, including Decrypto, the Zombie Kids series, and Turing Machine. So this is a publisher that has had some success before, and that makes me a lot more excited about this campaign and this game, and it makes me believe that this is not a money grab, but that the design of this and the production will be handled well. So, there's still some risk involved. They haven't crowdfunded before. They haven't run a Kickstarter before, and there can be some things that come up with that. But they have produced some good games, and they do know what they're doing. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at this video, and then we'll take a look at the rest of the campaign and the pricing for the pledges. Okay, so there's a look at, what the components look like and how the art's been translated. And, obviously here is the campaign itself. Let's take a look at the pledge prices. So we've got the first one that actually includes the game here, $66 for the standard game. Let's go down and take a look and see what shipping is so we can talk about that as well. So here we go, continental US. For one game, you're looking at $19 to $25. Let's just assume the top of the range, which means for this pledge price here, you're looking at about $91, including the shipping. Then if we go look at the collector's pledge, that's going to include the exclusive collector components as well as the standard game. So it's kind of like the upgraded version. And they're talking about the game with the add-ons, and this will be including all of the add-ons. So we're looking at a total price here of about $116 for this pledge. Now let's go look and see what those add-ons are. This is the Beheaded pledge, which is the first pledge here, just the kind of like standard version of the game. And it shows you the kind of stuff that you'll be getting. Double layered and sleeved mutation board, the annex board, the player aids, all the various stuff here. This is what you're getting in this base version of the game. And then as we go down further, we see these kind of tokens, which are obviously going to be like cardboard tokens. As we go down further, we can see what they've upgraded in this collector's pledge. So you're going to be getting, obviously, all the stuff from the standard edition. And then this miniature here with the first player token. You're also going to get double layered player boards and tuck boxes for you to be able to kind of store things. And then for all these tokens, you're going to be getting acrylic tokens. So these are upgrades. And there may be some more things that come out as the campaign goes on. But for now, that is what you're getting in this collector's version, which we can see the difference is about $20. And then, the shipping is about a $5 increase. So you're looking at about a $25 increase from one thing to the other to get the double layer player boards, the acrylic tokens, the big kind of 4-character miniature, and whatever else they decide to add to this. Now, this is going to be delivered in September 2024, so a little over a year. I think that's pretty reasonable. That's probably a normal delivery time for a game like this. Not as fast as something like Button Shy, which are card games, not as fast as a print and play, which can be immediate, and certainly not as long as something like, Aeon's and Odyssey, which is just this massive game that's going to take a long time to produce and to deliver. So this is Dead Cells, and I think, not having played it yet, but I'm pretty excited, and I think it's something that should excite fans of the video game, and I'm hoping that this does it justice. But I think that it's because it's by a publisher who has done some well-regarded games before, including the Zombie Kids series and Turing Machine. I think that's a good sign, and I think based on what you know about those games, or you can find out about those games, I think that's a pretty good indicator of what you can expect from Dead Cells. So this one is on Kickstarter, but we're going to be going back to Gamefound for the third and final time for the campaign for Detective Saints and Sinners. Now, this is from Van Ryder Games, and Detective City of Angels was maybe their first huge hit, although they also at that point in time had done Hostage Negotiator. But then they did Final Girl, and Final Girl was kind of... It wasn't just a reskinning of Hostage Negotiator, but it was them taking some of those ideas and mechanics and taking it from that Hostage Negotiator situation and putting it into this horror setting that they could customize for many different kinds of horror themes. Science fiction and aliens to slashers to supernatural, whatever. But now they've gone back to Detective City of Angels, and they're putting out a new expansion. So that's what this is. This is a new expansion for Detective City of Angels. Now, I have Detective City of Angels. I have some of the other expansions for it. I've played it before. I really like it. It is a lot like, let's say, Chronicles of Crime, or another game like that called Detective that's published by Portal Games. But both of those games use apps, and you're trying to solve cases, and they're kind of one-and-done cases. Detective is similar in the sense that the cases are set in stone, so once you play a case, you can't really replay it. The difference here is that this game, Detective City of Angels, does not use an app. What it instead uses is a player who functions as a dungeon master. They're called the Chisel. So when you're playing this game, there are ways to do it and kind of automate the Chisel, and just have players play cooperatively but have that dungeon master kind of automated. However, there is another kind of mode where you have someone who has played the game before or not can take on that role of the chisel and run the game for everyone else. So that means that if you've played the game as a detective, you can still play the game as the chisel, running the game for other detectives, other players. So it is limited in what you can do with it. It doesn't have unlimited replayability. Once you play a case as a detective, you're going to get things spoiled for you. But you can then, run the game for your friends as this kind of dungeon master type role. And there are some interesting things within that where you can give them, clues when they're, looking for certain kind of clues, but you can also not give them the full truth and lead them astray a little bit. There's some mechanics within the game that work with that and make it kind of interesting. But I do like Detective Saints and Sinners, and I think it's a really good game system. The art, largely by Vincent Dutray, at least in the base game, is awesome. So this is something that I would recommend, and Van Ryder Games is a really solid publisher. They're a smaller publisher, but they're pretty reliable. So yeah, let's take a look at the pledges on this. And in case I haven't done it yet, their funding goal here, $20,000. They're $80,000. They're funded. The campaign's going to end on June 2nd. And the game is going to deliver December 2023, so the end of this year. Now, if you just want this new expansion, if you have the other stuff, it's going to be $25. If we look at shipping down here, for that pledge, it's $12. So $37 total. And Saint is going to kind of be a partial pack because there are 3 new cases, but one of them, they're trying out a different model, was published previously, just sold through their website. So that case has now become one of the 3 new cases. So if you pledge Saint, you're essentially getting the other 2 new cases and some other kind of add-on stuff. So it's a little bit cheaper. It's going to be $37, but this assumes that you already have the Cloak and Daggered single case pack. Now, if you don't have that and you just want the new stuff, then what you want to do is go for the Sinner level. And this is also going to be a $12 shipping cost here, so you're looking at $47. And this would be what you want if you don't have that Cloak and Daggered case that was published by itself, and you just want all 3 new cases. So $47 with shipping, continental US. Now, if you don't have the base game, you can go over here. You can pledge for the boss. That will get you the base game, which is this big box in the background. It will get you also the new Sinners version of this new expansion, which is 3 more cases. But it's also going to add on the 2 previous expansions that have been available in the past, Bullets Over Hollywood and Smoke and Mirrors. And I believe each of these has 3 cases, maybe 4 cases. So just to reiterate, these cases are kind of one and dones in the sense that once you play it, the information within it is set in stone. It's not randomized. So once you play it, you'll know that. And in that sense, you've got a limited number of cases here. You've got some in the base game, a bunch. I think it's like maybe 8. And then I think 3 or 4 in each of these expansions. So you will reach a point as a detective, even if you buy the boss where you play through, I don't know, let's say it's somewhere between 15 and 20 cases total where you won't be able to play it anymore as a detective. But at that point, you can either sell off your stuff or just to continue to play it as the chisel, as the dungeon master type role, and introduce your friends to detective from time to time. Also, there's add-ons. So if you have some of the old stuff, but not all of it, you could pledge at the Sinner rate and then add on the stuff you don't have. Which would include the base game here for $90, the 2 previous expansions for $40 or $50, and then some promos and things. They've even got this screen, which is like a Dungeon Master screen, so that the character who's playing the chisel can do things and not be seen by other players. There's also, kind of like a miniature, or first player miniature, and some foreteller stuff if you want to add that stuff on. So This will be delivered, as we said, at the end of the year, and I like Van Ryder games, and I like the Detective series. And again, this is Detective City of Angels, which is not to be confused with Detective, a modern crime board game, which is published by Portal Games, and also features standalone cases that you solve, although that one does not have the ability, it's a completely different game, completely different design, and it doesn't have the ability to have a character kind of be the GM or the dungeon master and interact with the players and do them dirty sometimes and give them clues other times. It doesn't have that ability to interact in the same way that Detective City of Angels does. They're both good games, but they're different games and their functionality is a little bit different. But just so that you know, those are two different games. Detective City of Angels is not the same game as Detective, a modern crime board game. Okay, back to Kickstarter for our last two games. The first is called Disrupt, and of all the games that we're looking at today, this is the one that I'm sort of the least sure about. And just in terms of the game overall. I like the look of it. I think it looks to me a little bit like a Vital Lacerda light game, and it seems to me like they've cribbed off of the style from Ian O'Toole a little bit, but those are all good things. I like Vital Lacerda games, and I like Ian O'Toole art. And, if they have produced their own Euro here in that style and it's a good game, that's cool. And I thought I should bring this to your attention, but I don't know too much about this game, so just take that with a grain of salt. Also, this is a first-time publisher, Triple Meeple here, and if we look them up as a publisher, not only is this their first campaign on crowdfunding, it's actually their first game that they've published as a publisher, period. So that is something to be aware of, and that does make the risk on this campaign, I think, higher, because not only is it their first time doing a crowdfunding game, it's their first time publishing a board game, period. But I think that this game does have some potential here, so let's take a look at it, and let's watch the video.
Hi, I am John, and this is my story. I had this great idea for a startup. Only problem was, I had no money. Fortunately, this angel investor bought some shares. I used the money to collaborate with a BPO. I worked really hard. But last, my startup was developing. I hyped my project through social media and increased my brand equity. The market was bullish, and I was on board the gravy train. All until this market leader shows up. He gave me a choice, buyout or war. I sold out. Took the money. Why? I knew what he didn't know. Now I had money, ideas, and more projects coming. Who would you be in Silicon Valley? Disrupting now. Kickstarter.
It also reminds me a little bit of something like Smartphone, except that obviously instead of dealing with the smartphone industry, you are dealing with Silicon Valley and just tech startups in general. So let's take a look at their situation over here. We've got a funding goal of $8,600. They're currently at $19,000, so they're well funded. The campaign will end on June 2nd. There's a lot of videos too. If you want to take a closer look at gameplay, there's one that Mark Street did. I watched that one, but there's a bunch of other videos here. You can kind of check out more on the gameplay and investigate it further and see if you think it's the right game for you. But essentially, it's a medium weight Euro that has to do with buying and selling product and investing in the tech industry. That's the kind of theme here. So if we take a look at pledge prices for this one, we've got really just the one pledge, right? It's this Kickstarter pledge, and it's $49. If we take a look down here at shipping, we will see that it is, well, they have a range, 15 to 25 euros. So if we just put the top of the range in here, 25. euros is about 27 bucks, which means on top of the pledge, you're looking at about $76 all told with shipping. And this is planning on delivering in December 2023. So if you're considering this one, I would recommend taking a closer look at the videos on this, just because it's kind of an untested publisher. And there's a lot, I think, theme-wise and gameplay-wise, that we've seen before and has been done well before. And it may be, done well here again and repackaged in an interesting way. Here's a game tray system that's going to be included in this. But I think the price here is totally reasonable for this kind of game. And, if you're willing to take a chance on a new publisher, and let's take a look here. Oh, okay, so the designers have done a couple things before, including Theosis, Age of Adventures, USS Freedom, and Aeolus. And these are through some different publishers. So Dreamcraft Games and Meeple Pug. Yeah, that's Dreamcraft as well. Yeah, 3 games through Dreamcraft Games. And a lot of this is the same designers working together. So I'd say if you've played any of the Dreamcraft games, if you know Dreamcraft games, that might give you an indicator about what you think about Disrupt and whether you like it or not. But just to let you know, though, that the designers have worked before. They're not first-time designers. It's just the publishing entity itself that is new. Okay, our final campaign of the week is this game Sigil. And this is actually something that I'm pretty excited to show you, because I'm always looking for games by smaller designers, indie publishers, and things like that. But I also want to make sure that the games are solid enough when I'm kind of featuring them in this video. And I think Sigil looks pretty cool. So this one has a funding goal of $7,500. They're currently at $13,000, so it's funded. The campaign's going to end on June 15th. And as we can see here, this publisher, Pine Island Games, has only run one campaign before. And it is for... Didn't want to come up. Let's try it one last time. It is for the game Nut Hunt. So if you know Nut Hunt, you know a game by the publisher. Here is the publisher, Pine Island Games. So these are really, they've got another game, it looks like, in the pipeline, Froggy Bazaar, that they'll probably be getting to after Sigil, although Sigil looks like it's not going to be publishing until 2024. So let's satisfy my curiosity here. Let's take a quick look at the Nut Hunt campaign. All right. So it was supposed to deliver in March of 2023. Let's see if that's happened yet. Fulfillment is underway. So actually, it looks like it may be delivered early. And let's take a look at the comments just to see what people thought. And the reason that I'm doing this with this publisher is that they have essentially the one game that they've produced and delivered, so this is the best place that we can look at. Okay, so someone wants their tracking details, sending an email. Okay. Rules questions, loving the game. Okay, it looks, from what I can see, what does this say? Actually, it was a bit of a hurdle due to a mistake. Okay, blah, blah, blah. It looks like these are mostly engaged backers who are excited to have gotten the cat copy. They received the game. They're asking some game question here, but the creator is super responsive about this. So these are all very, very good signs. And, this looks like a lighter, kind of smaller game. I think Sigil is maybe a little bit more gamery, but it's not a super expensive game to produce either. This is sort of an abstract strategy game. It looks a little bit like Go, but then kind of takes it in other directions with these spells that you can cast. Let's take a look at the video because I think it highlights gameplay pretty well. It's definitely a different direction than Nut Hunt, but it's not like a super expensive game. So I think even though this is a newer publisher, I think the risk here is not too great.
The sigil comes alive with power. The duel draws near. Besting another mage is not merely a question of prowess, but of wit and guile. The sigil holds great power, but at a cost. Only a fool casts spells without good reason. To unleash their energy, my opponent and I take turns placing stones in the runes of power. Once I trap my opponent's stones, I can crush them. Once I fully control a spell, I can sacrifice my own stones to perform powerful magics. Expand my territory to claim key positions, attack my opponent's pieces, or even earn a permanent advantage. I lay my plans, setting traps, feints, and bluffs. I need to outsmart my opponent to earn a 3-stone advantage and claim victory. I must cast spells wisely, make sacrifices to achieve my goals. Every move counts. Do you have what it takes to control the sigil?
So I like what I'm seeing in this. It's a strategy dueling game, so obviously this is for 2 players head to head. But I like the combination, what I'm seeing here, of kind of the abstract strategy stuff, but then also some kind of very gamery things with the spells that you can trigger and then cast, and how that sort of integrates with that area control element, the go element with the little glass pieces. And watching the video, you can see them picking the spells up, which means there's a lot of room in this game for variability. They can always make more spells that do more different kinds of powers, that do different things and interact with the gameplay in different ways, and then have you use different spells in the game. They just have to produce those little tiles or cards, and they can have a lot of variability in this. They could even design new boards as well. So I think this looks really cool. Let's take a look at pledge prices. All right, so we've got the base game down here for $39, and then we've got this version of the game with some add-ons, which includes these wooden boxes, right? These kind of smaller wooden boxes and a neoprene mat. So that makes it go up quite a bit, over $100 jump from $39 to $159. And then they've got this pledge here. This is obviously very expensive, and this is going to be done in a limited quantity, so it's not for most people, but it has this like lacquered wooden box. So this is something that these kind of pledge prices, I don't normally talk about these. I consider these to be what I call vanity rewards, meaning there's only a few things. Sometimes they put your image on a card or some element of the game, or like in this case, they have just a really nice, expensive game box. So for most people, we're going to be looking at these 2 pledges, the $39 version of the game without the extras, and then this $159 version with the neoprene game mat and 2 of these like component boxes. So let's take a look a little bit further down and just include the shipping in what we're talking about. All right, here we go. So here's the shipping. So 10 or 30, which means pledging just the base game is going to be $49 in the continental US with shipping. And if you're looking at the version with the neoprene mat and these boxes, you're looking at $189, which to me that feels a lot for what this is. And so if I was backing this, I'd probably be going more for the $39 or $49 with shipping. And then this campaign. This game is planning on being delivered in March of 2024. But I always like to find different things out there, games that are being produced by designers trying different things, new ideas that aren't necessarily the big game companies. And so it always pleases me when I can include something like Sigil and shine a light on some other publishers and designers that maybe people haven't heard of yet. And let's just take a look at the designer, Andreas Vollmer, and it looks like, yeah, this is going to be Andreas's first published game. So a little bit of a risk here, first-time designer and a publisher that's only published one game before, Nut Hunt, but they did a good job delivering it, and this isn't a super expensive game to produce, especially if you're not getting the version with the neoprene matte. And so I personally wouldn't be too worried about this, and even so, if you pledge this version, you're only putting in about $50, so it's not a huge risk. And if you take a look at the page here, you'll see a lot of compliments from people who have played it. So I think the game itself is probably going to be pretty decent, and you just need to make sure that this is your type of game, meaning you like abstract strategy games. And I think this is worth a look for a lot of people. So those are the 8 campaigns that I wanted to highlight this week. I'll be back in a few days with a new video since I'm running so late this week. I should have the next video up by Friday at the latest, and we'll be looking at all of the games that have launched in the last week, including this coming Tuesday, that I feel warrant your attention. I do know that I'll be looking at games including the new Apex Legends board game. That's from Glass Cannon Unplugged. They did the board game version of Frostpunk, which has been really successful from everybody that I know who's played it. It's a very good adaptation, and it's pretty well loved. So I'm pretty excited about Apex just in general as a campaign. I haven't decided whether it's something for me or not, or if I'm going to back it, but I have growing faith in Glass Cannon, even though they've only done that one game. We'll also be looking at the new version of Evolution from Crowd Games. It's called Another World, and then we'll also be looking at the new Monster Hunter campaign from Steamforged Games. Now, they've had a little bit of a shakeup in recent months. They laid off a bunch of employees a few months ago. They say they're still okay and that they're actually continuing to grow and everything is good with them. And I personally did not back the previous Monster Hunter campaign. I instead went in on Primal the Awakening, which is another boss battler, and I did the Witcher Old World, which is delivering any time now. So I did not back the original Monster Hunter campaign. I have mixed feelings about Steamforged Games as a publisher. However, I was very excited that they helped out Dia Games save Euthia, and so I'm hoping that Steamforged Games does well so that they can help Euthia happen. But I'll be talking more about Steamforged Games and Monster Hunter and those other 2 games in the next video, which should be out in a few days by the end of the week, as well as I'm sure a bunch of games that are launching on Tuesday. So thank you very much for joining me this week. I hope there were some surprises in this week's video, and let me know in the comments if you're really excited about any of these games, and if anything that I talked about campaign-wise was a surprise for you or alerted you to something that you didn't know existed, like maybe is the case with Sigil. So I'll see you in less than a week with another video, and until then, have a great week and play lots of great games. Take care.